Okay, what we have here is a little still. This is about 1 liter. All right, it'll hold a bottle, one bottle of wine or whatever you want to use. And what I'm doing is I'm heating it up with this little Coleman stove. And the way it's supposed to work is the vapor, kind of goes through this coil, now it comes out through here. This is just a gallon jug from vinegar or something like that. It's not important. That's just a condenser. And the way it works is the vapors go up in here. The condenser turns the vapor into liquid. The liquid goes back into here. All right, I'm just cleaning out the system. This is water. So it's basically a water distillation system. I just want to see what's going to happen with this before I try something else. This is a test and to clean out the system. Okay, this stuff is coming out, but as you can see, it's kind of pokey and irregular, and that's basically because this thing is a little off balance. That's an adjustment I'm going to have to make. Seal down there seems to be holding up for the most part. This isn't designed to go long range, but we got something coming out, and that's pretty much what it looks like. I trimmed this down about as far as I could go without, I suppose I could trim it down farther, but what we're doing is just distilling water. Okay, and it seems to work. Everything's tightened up. As this pipe gets hot, it melts the ice that's in there, but it's that cold water that condenses this, and you can see the condensation all around the end of that pipe. Let's see, can we get that a little better? There we go. So we'll just run this out, and I'll test this stuff that's coming out of here. See what's in it, see if we have any copper sulfates or anything like this in from this tube. I haven't used it for quite a while, but we're gonna make some adjustments after doing this, and we'll go on to something else. Okay, I didn't run the whole thing through. I didn't think it was really necessary. I just pulled this much out, a little bit more, basically to see how the system works, see if it was sealed, see if there's any impurities in the condenser, that sort of thing. But I just want to show you something here. I just, since this is distilled and this is tap water, which is what this distilled came from, I'm going to try something here. Just going to see what the total dissolved solids is, and that looks like 65. Okay, and that's what we started off with. All right, let's see what this distilled stuff does. And does that say 22? There we go. That's it. All right, nice difference. That's what happens when you distill something. You basically turn it to steam vapor. You send it through some copper, and you condense it with cold water until it reconstitutes back into a liquid. The reason for that is this is going to have a lot more impurities than this because it's distilled. If I would have slowed it down some, if I would have done it a little bit more correctly, okay, I could have gotten this down to just a couple of digits. I could keep repeating that until I have nothing at all. All right, you're always going to have something in there, but it's significantly reduced from this. With just one pass. Taste-wise, what could I say? It's hard water, so there's going to be a metallic taste to it. There's not much you could do about that. This has significantly less, though. If I would have used a larger batch and ran it a lot longer, you'd probably see solids in the bottom of the Erlenmeyer flask that I was using. Okay, the solids that were in the water. All right, they'll just basically stay there. But this kind of it's interesting because we've got 22 on this one, which basically means it's not separating all the impurities. All right, and if you're distilling, and if you want to get any flavor out of it, the flavor is considered an impurity. All right, so if you're making rum, you're going to want a molasses flavor to come through. If you didn't have that molasses, If you just ran it as clean as you could get, what's the point in even using molasses? Just use sugar and yeast and water, and you're going to end up with 190. Very little taste, high proof. You lower the proof, you're going to get better flavor. And that's exactly what this little test does. I mean, 22 parts per million, it's not bad. Coming from 70 something over on this one. What I intend on doing is taking that Erlenmeyer flask and putting some rum ferment in there. Run it through a little slower and just see what happens. Maybe I could pull some of the contaminants out, which basically means a little flavor. I'll set up that experiment. We'll get right to that. Alrighty then, as promised. This is about almost 900 milliliters of a rum wash. This is a little over a fifth that you'll find at any liquor store, except this is just a rum wash. It's molasses, water, yeast, sugar, and it's been sitting around for a couple of months. Haven't gotten around to doing anything with it. I just don't seem to have enough time to distill 6 gallons of this stuff, so I thought I'd give it a shot here and see how this stuff turns out. As I said, this is the wash, and this is the little still setup. As you can see, got some ice in there. I'll end up putting some water in there to make it a little bit more liquid. I modified this thing by putting this thing on the end, and I tilted the thing up, and I bent some pipe a little bit, but I think it's going to work a lot better. And we're going to see exactly how this thing works. I don't have a thermometer on this. I suppose I should. But, what could I say? This is more of a toy than anything else. Low flame. We're going to observe this. We're going to see what happens. And hopefully we're going to be able to get the alcohol out along with some impurities in the form of flavor. Okay, so we're going to see how that works out. We'll get back to you in a little bit, see how this thing is going. I just want to point out this Erlenmeyer flask is excellent for this sort of thing. Very low flame, but just a couple minutes later you can see that this thing's bubbling up nice. I'm attempting to extract the alcohol with a few impurities in the form of flavor out of this thing, and already I could tell that this thing is heating up a lot faster than water will, because of the alcohol content. All right, I don't want it to boil. I don't know. We're gonna test a few things and find out. But as you can see, it's coming up real quick, real nice, and that's a very low flame down there. These little burners are great for this. I just wish I had something to give it a little bit more height so I could control the flame a little bit more. This feathering control is tricky, if anything. But a low flame is going to work. That's why I'm doing it inside. A little breeze with a low flame, that's going to put it right out. It's going to mess things up. As you can see, we got some action going on in there. Some bubbles rising to the top. Essentially, sort of a foam. One of the things that you'd want to control if you're doing something like corn, which is a little bit more on the base side. Okay, it could really clog things up because it's going to foam up. Okay, one of the reasons that I believe, salt helps, in the tank. I suppose I should do a study on that. And since I don't have a clear boiler, at least this will give me an idea as to what's going on inside there. So we'll see how this goes. So far, this is starting to get warm. Impressive. Yep, it's starting to get warm. We're getting some vapor out of there. We'll see how this thing goes, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, as you can see, this could be a potential problem if it wasn't so clear on this. But we're getting some good vapor up through here. I don't think it's going to clog anything. I don't think it's going to puke or anything. We'll see. If it does, it'll just probably give it more flavor. But already the pipe's getting hot. The ice is starting to steam. I'm starting to hear a little rumble in here. and we're seeing the beginnings of some stuff coming out. Yep, it's puking a little too much. Let me see if I can turn this down a little. Put too much in there. This is why alright, gotta set something up quick. Okay, yeah, for the record, it did puke a little bit. We got some of this stuff, this raw stuff up through the pipe. As you can see, it discolored it a little bit. No big deal, alright, as far as I'm concerned. That's the stuff I was going to toss anyhow. You know, the nasty stuff, the acetates, crap like that. And you're going to have that when you're working with something like this. Okay, and as you can see, it's still a little bit of a discoloration in there. Not a big deal at this point because, like I said, I'm looking for flavor in this one. Okay, I trimmed the heat down to a tolerable level. If there's alcohol in this, yeah, it's going to heat up really quick, really fast, really hard, much more so than water. This isn't, you know, making coffee. This is, you know, a little bit else. But if I maintain that gap in there like this, I think we'd be able to come up with something reasonable. And it's interesting, you know, because I still have some coloration in there. Not that I'm all that crazy about that puke color, okay? But who knows? Maybe you could, oh man, that's pretty good. I think I could turn this down just a little bit. It's difficult to feather something like this. It's a little bit better. But let me tell you, that's rum. We'll see how this goes. Add more ice if we need to. But so far, so good. Everything's working out fine. It's coming out a little bit too fast to suit me. When I did the water, this thing stayed ice cold all the way through the process. Now it's room temperature. Like I say, this is just an experiment. We're going to see how this thing goes. Take it from there. Okay, we're nearing the end of this run. I dumped out one of these, the first one. There was probably about that much it was in it. You know, the nasty stuff. This stuff is actually, oddly enough, drinkable, even though it's basically puke-laden. By comparison, this one's a little clearer. Okay, and this stuff ain't bad. The stuff that's coming out now, it's more on the clear side. Okay, but the trade-off is it's towards the end of the run. You know, we're going to be picking up fusels and things like this. All right, but you know, we'll measure the stuff as it comes out, take it from there. But we did have a very small amount in here, and a container that was way too small for this. You know, mental note: maybe doing this with a container, a vessel, a boiler. Twice this size, maybe 2,000 milliliters would probably work just fine. Okay, this is for small stuff only. You know, ordinarily when you do something like this, you should have it topped off no more than 2/3. You know, in any kind of container to prevent this sort of thing, you know, from happening. You know, this sort of thing. You know, what happened was this dark stuff came up through the pipe instead of the vapors, or along with the vapors, and that's what we call puke. Okay, you know, there's no other word for it. All right, but unlike puke, this stuff doesn't taste bad at all. This stuff is a little bit better. All right, and this, let's see, come on. We're starting to pick up a little fusel on that, but I have them in separate containers here, just so I could distinguish between the three. All right. If it wouldn't have gotten too hot too fast, too soon, too full, okay, we wouldn't have had this discoloration. It would have come out clear as water. All right. Right from the start, you want to toss out some of the nasty stuff anyhow. Because, well, that's your acetates, that's your wood alcohols, your rubbing alcohol, that kind of crap. You don't want to drink that. Okay. You don't even want to keep that stuff around. You're better off just tossing it. You'd have to factor down basically how much you'd have to toss away. Let's see, in about 5 or 6 gallons, I toss away about maybe 100 milliliters to be safe. Okay, so it's not much, in a system like this. Okay, so yeah, I'd say you could probably make an excellent brandy just by dumping some cheap wine in here. I'm gonna figure out a way to scale this thing down a little bit so it could be a tabletop model. Uh, Coleman heater's great, but maybe I could come up with something better. Maybe an alcohol burner or a butane burner. There's something to keep this thing relatively small. And hey, who knows? I think it'd be a great conversation piece, something you can put on your table when you have company. One shot at a time coming out the pipe. As you can see, it's slowing down quite a bit. There's not much action. I think we drained this of alcohol just about as much as we possibly can. After this, all we're going to have coming out is probably going to be something the equivalent of bad tasting water. But I think that pretty much concludes this experiment. Move on to something else. But before we move on to something else, it wouldn't be right if we didn't do this. Okay, gotta look at the color. All right, there's not enough in here, in my opinion, to be able to test properly with with any kind of instrument. You'd have to have I don't know, 4 times more than this. Well, that's pretty damn good, really, considering it costs pennies. Yeah, aside from the color, I'd say this is bottleable. This is great. Hell, I drink this stuff. Go great with. This doesn't need to be spiced. Really, this does not need to be spiced. That molasses flavor, even though it was puke that came out, this molasses flavor is great. I mean, I'm impressed. I'm severely impressed. But I think next time I'm gonna maybe use half as much. I'll get half as much out. Maybe I'd be better off with a flask twice this size. All right, but I'm impressed with the results. I really am. I didn't think this would do that. My next trick, maybe I'll make brandy out of some cheap wine that I have laying around that I wasn't going to do anything with. Until next time.